there are a lot of mistakes language-wise. No matter what nationality students come from, they still face difficulties in these topics, and we find that these are a common point of errors even at later point in the stage in their course and journey. So we're trying to make sure today that if you guys also face the same errors, let's find what they are and let's rectify them. We've broken them down into a couple of them. The very first one that we're going to talk about is faux amis, which is basically false friends. Okay, we call them faux amis in French. I'm sure you guys must have heard of the term. These are those words which exist in English as well. So some words in English words that exist French as well, but the meanings change. Okay, for example, all of us must be familiar with the term visiter, which is to visit. Okay, and we feel if we want to say I visit my mother, in our head we would translate it as je visite ma mère. Yeah, the problem is that that's incorrect. That is a literal translation of using I visit my mother, which the correct one would be je rends visite. So when you visit people, the right frame and the right structure to use it, rendre visite. So if I want to say I visit my mother, instead of saying je visite ma mère, the right term would be je rends visite. So you'll conjugate rendre. Je rends visite à ma mère. So you always make a visit to someone. So je rends visite à ma mère. Ou je rends visite à mon ami. Or je rends visite à ma grand-mère. So whenever you're visiting a person, you will always use the expression rendre visite, otherwise it's incorrect. Remember that visiter will be used when you're visiting places. So for example, je visite les monuments, je visite les sites touristiques, that is visite. But when you're visiting a person, it's always going to be rendre visite. That's number one. So that's a false ami. That's a false ami. Next one, a verb which I think all of you guys are very familiar with, réaliser. Réaliser, which means to realize. Okay? But when we're trying to express that I realized something, I don't use this verb in French then. When you have a realization, the expression you will use for it would be rendre compte. So if I want to say I realized, the right way to say that would be je me suis rendu compte que. The expression is se rendre compte, which is reflexive, and then because you're making the realization to yourself, it's coming to you, so you're going to put that into conjugation. So je me suis rendu compte que. Que is very important. I realized that, so je me suis rendu compte que, for whatever you realize, que j'avais oublié mes clés. I realized that I had forgotten my keys. Je me suis aperçu de mon erreur. Je me suis rendu compte qu'il pleuvait. I realized that it was raining. Okay. Réaliser, on the other hand, is very formal, which means to accomplish something. When you accomplish your dreams, that's when you will use réaliser. Okay. A common error that I find students using in their speaking as well as writing at much later stage as well. Okay. Let's see something like comma. We feel like comma, which is often used in French, of course. We will say, if you find something that's common, that's very generic, that's everywhere, you will use the term répandu ou courant. Okay? Ce phénomène est répandu partout. This phenomena is common everywhere. So répandu is widespread, courant is usual. You will not use the term comma here. Okay? Something like actuellement. We feel like, oh, actuellement should be actually. The term actuel followed by ment, actuellement should be actually. No, that's not the right translation for it in French. Actuellement actually means currently. What are you doing currently? Donc, actuellement, je travaille comme enseignante au Canada. Actuellement means currently, this is what I'm doing. Currently. So when you essentially want to use a translation for actually, the term you'll use in French is en fait. Okay, something like en fait, je ne suis pas d'accord. Actually, I don't agree. So that's actuellement in that context. Do not mix the usage. Okay. So if you want to say actually, you will use en effet, not you will not use actuellement for actually. Okay, actuellement means currently. A very, very common error. I, for myself, I think for the longest time ever, I even made that mistake when I was a student until I realized that it's a fact. Okay, we have the term société or compagnie. The term that we actually use to refer for companies and enterprises is entreprise, which is for jobs and businesses. And société specifically is for legal entity. Okay. So, for example, if you say that I work for a company, that is, je travaille pour une entreprise. Or my company is very big, mon entreprise est grande. Or my company is very innovative, l'entreprise est innovante. So, whenever you're talking about a general company, any company, you'll use the term entreprise, not société or compagnie. Be sure of that. It's a very minute difference, but it's very, very evident for a trainer. Next, class. Very common term. We've seen this come across. Class means a classroom, whereas cours means a class session. For example, right now, you're not in a class, you're in a cours. Okay? So if you want to say, I'm going to attend the session, I'm going to attend the class, that's going to be je vais assister à un cours. Okay? Or my class starts at 9 a.m. Mon cours commence à 9 heures. Or if you want to say that I take notes during that class, je prends des notes pendant le cours, not class. Okay? You always attend a class, which is cours, not class. Okay? Class means a physical classroom. Okay? Another such example that I have for you is opportunité. Okay, opportunité in French is formal for saying job, for jobs basically. Which means that in case you want to use it in the term of, oh, I had the opportunity to do this, the right term for you would be chance, une chance, or occasion. You will not say opportunité there. So if I want to say I had the chance of traveling, j'ai eu la chance de voyager. If you want to say it was an excellent opportunity for me, excellent chance, excellent opportunity. That is c'était une bonne occasion. But we had a very special opportunity. Nous avons eu une occasion spéciale. So for everyday situations, you'll use chance ou occasion. And you'll stick opportunity related to jobs or finance only. There's the terms such as spécifique. Okay? Spécifique in French does not, if you want to say this is a very specific task or this is a very specific situation, that specific is not specifique, it's particulier. So if I want to say a very particular situation, that is une situation particulière, un cas particulier, une personne particulière. If you carefully notice, again, there's E in the end of particulier, and in this case, there isn't according, masculine and feminine. Make sense? So similar words such as attendre, which is a very common one. Attendre means to wait. It doesn't mean to attend. So if you're attending a class, it doesn't mean attendre. It means assister. Attendre means to wait. Like if you're waiting at the bus stop waiting for the bus, that is j'attends pour le bus. But when you're attending a class, that is assister à. So j'assiste à un concert, j'assiste à une réunion, j'assiste à un mariage. Okay? So anything that you're going to assist to, that means attend to. Assister is always followed by a. Okay? Let's figure out some more words. Pardon. We have the words like retirer, journée, l'occasion, also some very common words like this. So if you ever want to dig up some things that you get confused with, dig up the session on Faux Amis and you will see some words which are common in French and English, but their usages are very different. If I move forward from there, my favorite, preposition. The difference between il et versus c'est. this. If it's a bottle of water, will I say c'est une bouteille d'eau or will I say il est une bouteille d'eau? Which is better? C'est une
C'est
bouteille d'eau or il est une bouteille d'eau?
c'est une bouteille.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you're referring to an object, a noun, a proper noun, a pronoun, an adjective, which is a non-specific, non-referent, it is say. Even for a lot of cases, it's going to be say only. Il or la will be used when this adjective alone, nationality, occupation, you're referring to what religion this person follows, that is il or la. Okay? Like la and the N. She is Indian. Get that. Il est Canadien. He is Canadian. I get that. Il or el in that way. But for objectives or objects, nouns, proper nouns, in all of these cases, you use say. Okay? And honestly, if you're ever in too much of a doubt, just use say. It's safer. Okay? Now, we look at something very interesting, and I think as a topic, we've covered passé composé in length, but let's say passé composé as a structure, we know consists of the subject followed by the auxiliary. Our auxiliary is basically avoir or être that we use, followed by our past participle, correct? So we have the subject, auxiliary, and past participle. We know that auxiliary would basically mean you're using avoir or être, and where do we use avoir and être is a major cap. For everybody in the class who've done passé composé would know that we use être with a certain set of verbs. Correct? Does anybody remember the acronym? And
Mrs. Van der Trump.
Absolutely, Dr. Mrs. Vandercham. It's a very simple acronym that we have for us to memorize what these verbs are. Let me walk you through that. Right here. So, Dr. Mrs. Vandercham, devenir, revenir, monter, rester, sortir, venir, arriver, naître, descendre, entrer, retourner, tomber, rester, aller, mourir, partir, and passer. These are the verbs which come with être. Rest all the verbs that you know will come with avoir. For example, if you want to say that I went to the market, that will be je suis allé au marché. If you want to say that I came yesterday evening, that will be or she came yesterday evening, elle est venue hier soir. Monter, which is to climb up. Nous sommes montés au sommet. We climbed up the summit. Descendre, il est descendu de l'avion. In all of these cases, we are using être. Why? Because the verbs that we have here are the ones which come with être. Or rather, if I have words like parler, we have words like, let's say, écouter, we have words like dormir, finir, all of these verbs are not in this list, which means they'll come with avoir. So you'll take the subject, you'll conjugate avoir and être, and then you'll put the past participle. And while we're here on the subject, I'd like to ask something. You guys see that there's an extra E here, there's an extra S here, there's an extra E here. Run. Why do we have this, guys? Anybody who can tell me? We're revising. Pourquoi on ajoute un E ou S supplémentaire après le participe passé? Pourquoi?
Because
According with the subject.
Correct. It has to be according to the subject. So if it's masculine, we don't add anything. If it's plural, we add an S. If it's feminine, we add an E. This process is called according. And this process only applies to the être verbs. And this goes a long way. You do the same process of accords when you do active and passive voice also. So understanding where will you put this extra E and extra S only with être past participles. When there's feminine, you add an E. When there's pluriel, you add an S. When there's both, you add both. Make sense? So for example, we have the verb tomber, and I want to say she fell. Tomber is to fall, right? And if I want to say she fell on the road, I say elle est tombée dans la rue. Fair enough. But do you see there's an extra E here? Why? Because my subject is elle, which is feminine. So I'll have to add an extra E there. Now understand this extra E and S They don't change my pronunciation, but they are very, very important for our spelling purpose. We understand this, guys? Why is it an issue and what are the errors? So the past participle has to agree in gender and number. When I say gender, extra E gets added, number, an extra S gets added, depending on the subject, only with être verbs. So a recap of that would be elle tale. I'm going to put an extra E. Why? Because elle is feminine. And ale as a verb comes with être. Ils sont allés. I'm just putting an extra S here because it's masculine, so I don't need an E. But I need an S because it's pluriel. Nous sommes montés. If it's feminine pluriel, I'll add the E and the S both. Okay? Having said that, since you all know that when a verb changes to reflexive, se laver, se lever, everybody we know se coucher, whenever a verb becomes reflexive, they automatically fall in the category of être. We put them with être. Hence, in my past tense of saying I woke up, I got up at 7 a.m. That will be je me suis levé à 7 heures. And if it was elle as a subject, then if you notice, I've added an extra E here. Make sense? So this process of according applies to être in your past tense or your composed form of verbs. Does not change the pronunciation, so be stress-free about that, but changes the spelling and very, very important for your written evaluations. In your writing examinations in TEF TCF, the examiners make sure that they look out for this. All right. Which means, by the way, when you guys are revising your writing in 5 minutes, make sure you keep an eye out. Have you accorded everywhere? Are the adjectives accorded according to the nouns? Have you accorded the past participles or not? Always make sure. Okay. While most of the verbs that you saw, Dr. and Mrs. Vandertram, they come with être, but they can take up avoir as well. I know. When does that happen? Why does that happen? Let me walk you through that. Some verbs of motion can take avoir instead of être when they have a direct object. That means when the verb is transitive. For example, everybody understands what direct and indirect is, right? We did say they and we did say we, so we know what direct and indirect is. But those who are attending for the first time, let me explain what that is. We have the subject, verb, and object. This is how our sentence is formed. If between my verb and object, if there is a preposition, then this becomes indirect. And if it is subject, verb, and object, then this is a direct sentence, direct object. Okay? So if in a sentence I have indirect, then I'll use être only with these verbs. If not, then I have to use avoir. Let's see some examples. Monter. Monter is to climb up, to go up. Je suis monté au 3e étage. I went up on the 3rd floor. Correct? My verb. Sorry. My verb and my preposition is indirect. Yeah, I'll use être only as is. But something like this one, j'ai monté. Subject, verb, followed by your object. Now there is no preposition here, right? Les is an article, not a preposition. Remember we talked about this. Which means because of this, I'm going to use j'ai, avoir, instead of être. Because my object here is direct. So j'ai monté les valises is I got the suitcases up. The action is not being done to me, it's to the suitcase. Let's take another example. Something like descendre. We know descendre comes in my Dr. and Mrs. Vandertram list, right here. Okay. Fine, it comes there, I know it. So it should be être. Elle est descendue du train. She got off from the train. She descended from the train. Perfect. Preposition? Yeah, so makes sense. We're doing it. On the contrary, look at this one. Elle a descendu les escaliers. Here we have put avoir. Why? Because after my past participle, I have direct. You see the difference? Now, this may be something that you guys have not noticed so far, but I bet you guys will start noticing it now. So with your verbs like monter, descendre, entrer, sortir, passer, retourner, they can sometimes take up avoir. When will this happen? Very, very simple. This will happen whenever the object is direct. As simple as that. Okay, nothing too complicated. Let's take one more example. Something like passer. Je suis passé devant le magasin. That's your past participle. That's your preposition. Correct? Which means that's why we've used être. Je suis passé devant le magasin. I passed by or in front of the magasin, the shop. Fair. But on the other hand, when will you use avoir? When it is direct. So j'ai passé une semaine à Paris. I spent or I passed 1 week in Paris. Now, une is not a preposition, right? Hence, you're using avoir. I'm sure even if you did not know this rule, you may have come across this. Do you now see why that is? Yeah, guys, I need a thumbs up and a thumbs down because I know everyone's on mute. So I need to, and you guys, I can see you on a very small screen in front of me. So I want everybody to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if that's making sense. How many of you knew that this rule existed? How many of you already knew that this rule existed and you were using it as is? Tell me on the chat. Let me know on the chat if you guys were okay. You didn't know this. Okay. You for sortir. Okay, perfect. For those of you who are discovering this for the first time, I know for a fact you must have seen this sentences at least. J'ai passé and je suis passé. Now you know when to use what. Okay? Something, okay, let me just take up one more and I proceed. It's something like sortir. Sortir is to go out, correct? So if I went out yesterday, I would say je suis sorti hier. But, and something like on the other hand, il a sorti la poubelle. Poubelle. Poubelle is a dustbin or trash. The action has been done to the poubelle. No, you're not taking yourself out. You're taking the dustbin out. So il a sorti la poubelle. Make sense, everyone? That's the difference between you using être and avoir for some verbs that, despite of being falling into Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tram, can be put with avoir. Okay. Next one error, following error that I often find students making is when do we put a and when do we put the? This is a massive issue, massive issue. Where I mean, sometimes I feel like everyone's just putting it the way that they like it. And the. Very handy prepositions and the. There are two that we use, and we cannot just choose randomly, guys. It depends on the verb that is before it. Okay, so instead of thinking what prepositions should come, think of it as what is the first verb. Okay, so verbs that basically take up are is often used when the verb introduces an action that someone is doing. Okay, so if I say the class is going to start at 10 a.m. or I'm going to start to help people. This is the kind of help I'm going to give to others. I'm starting to learn a language, or I'm thinking about doing something, or I'm going to invite someone. These common verbs will always be using a after it. So, commencer à faire quelque chose, you start to do something. So, je vais commencer à faire le cours en ligne, for example. Okay? Je vais aider à apprendre à réussir à penser à inviter à jouer à. These are some common verbs which will take a after it. For example, je commence à étudier. I start to study. It's not like in English I say I start to study. I say I'm starting studying or I start studying. In French, because you're using commencer, it has to be followed by a. You're starting to do something, right? So, commencer à faire quelque chose. So, je commence à étudier. Il aide à préparer le dîner. He is helping to prepare dinner. Nous apprenons à parler français. We are learning to speak French. Il joue football. Tu invites tes amis à la fête. Now, if you notice, these are some very common verbs that will have a after it. Okay? So, think of it as a as in to do something or you're moving towards an action. I'm starting to believe. So, croire à. I'm starting to think. So, penser à. I'm beginning to realize. So, commencer à. Do you understand wherever a is coming? Let me explain a little further. If I talk about the, on the other hand, the will be used when you're talking about stopping, starting, decided, thinking about something or of something. Okay? So you stop. So arrêter de, you're stopping. Decider de, you're deciding. Essayer de, you're starting to decide something. You're starting to do something. You're trying to do something. Oublier de faire quelque chose. You're about to you're forgetting of doing something. Finir de, parler de, you're talking of someone or of something. Rêver de, you're dreaming of something or of someone. So these verbs will always follow the. J'arrête de fumer. I stop smoking. Elle décide, she's deciding of what? Of leaving. So elle décide de partir. Nous essayons de comprendre. We're starting to understand, of understanding. Il oublie de faire des devoirs. He forgets what? He forgets about doing his homework. So these verbs will always follow the. A very simple tip for you guys would be while the is used for of, from, and about, it is often linked to your verbs which denote stopping, deciding, or thinking of someone. Okay? Means your two prepositions that you have, think of it as towards an action and the from stopping or deciding of something. So your verbs such as commencer à, aider à, apprendre à, réussir à, penser à, réfléchir à, inviter à, jouer à. And on the other hand, de, arrêter de, décider de, essayer de, parler de. Some common verbs. You always, some verbs which can come with both. They'll come with a also, they can come with de also. Such as parler. If you're talking to someone, then it is parler à quelqu'un. Je parle à ma mère. I'm talking to my mother. But if you're talking of someone, that is parler de quelque chose. Make sense? Something like penser. If you're thinking about someone, then penser à quelqu'un. Thinking about someone, then it is penser à quelqu'un or penser à quelque chose. But when you're thinking of someone, like it's your opinion about something, that is penser de quelque chose. We have the I'm going to just zoom in just a little bit. I think I went. Revenir. Revenir is to come back. Okay, so with revenir, when you go back to someone or to something, that is revenir à quelque chose. But when you come back from somewhere or from something, that is revenir de quelque chose. So when you're translating in your head, see, is it to or is it from? Okay, you'll always stop off smoking. Okay, j'arrête de fumer. Elle décide de partir. Nous essayons de comprendre. These are fixed. But the verbs which can come with both, there ask yourself. A simple way of remembering, like a trick that I personally also used. Was one starting an action or indirect? It's not indirect. Is it stopping? Is it deciding? Yes. But honestly, I came up with a list from online wherein I saw all the verbs which follow are, all the verbs that follow with the, and I read it a couple of times. So that if not, at least it registers. I can identify it. Okay. So if you're also stuck in that problem of whether it's whether it's the, A, follow these rules. B, try to review the list of verbs which are always with are and which are always with the and those which can come with. Take 1 day of practice just to do this. It's an important task to overcome because in the examination, you know you're going to be using ours and theirs a lot. Yeah? Okay. Let's proceed. Having said that, another very important grammatical error that we make, beaucoup de. And I still see it a lot of beaucoup de. Is it beaucoup de or beaucoup de? It's always beaucoup de. Even if whatever after the is plural or feminine or whatever it is, it's still beaucoup de. If you have a lot of friends, then it is still the. J'ai beaucoup d'amis. The apostrophe ami. The max you can change that is to the apostrophe, okay? So, j'ai beaucoup d'amis. I will not say j'ai beaucoup des amis. J'ai beaucoup de livres. So, never add des after beaucoup. It doesn't exist. It's wrong. Even if whatever you're talking about is plural, it will still remain the. So, j'ai beaucoup d'amis, j'ai beaucoup d'animaux, j'ai beaucoup de livres, j'ai beaucoup de problèmes. Always beaucoup will be followed by the. They does not exist after that. Okay, next. Pronunciation wise, the sound of A for this word. I have je as a subject, Q as a subject, il as a subject. All of them are using non-A sounds like je parle français, tu parles français, il parle français. The spelling of parle is changing, but I'm not saying parler at any point in time. Okay? Only times where your A sound will come. Number one, when you have E accent aigu, correct? Like in your past participle, parler, écouter, marcher, aller, étudier. That's one. Next, whenever your verbs are ending in ER, that means infinitives. Parler, marcher, étudier. Perfect. Next, whenever it's ending with AIS or AIT, imparfait. AIENT, again. Okay? And EZ. Okay? So let's look at it from this. I'm going to write that in front of you. When do we use the A sound? I'll take marche as an example, okay? This is marche, walked, correct? This is the A sound. This is marche, infinitive, A sound. This is marche, EZ, A sound. Marche, marche, marche. This is my imperfect conjugation. Correct? Other than this, the sound of A does not happen. So if I have this is marche. This is marche. This is marche. None of what you see. These in the last column that I've put, these are not A sounds. So you'll have your A sound when it's E accent, ER, EZ, or AIS, AIS, and AIENT. I talked about this extensively when we did phonetics, but I'm just reminding you of that again. Okay? Same of what I just discussed, your ENT sound is not the A sound, or your third person plural, which is ENT. You don't pronounce it, okay? So the pronunciation is something like marche, marche, and marche is the same. And fact, same. Something like finis. Assume that the NT is not there. So finis. So never will you pronounce the NT in the end for third person plural. So stop pronouncing the ENT. Okay? Next error that you should keep in mind. In fact, whenever you're doing your TEF TCF writing, make sure that in your revisions, you actually cross-check if you've done this or not. You know you're supposed to have the adjective according to the subject, right? Like it has to be according to your noun. Forgetting adjective agreement, that means it has to be feminine, has to be plural. That agreement is very important, which we often forget, to be very honest, in the exam. LA beau is incorrect, isn't it? Because beau is masculine. So it should be LA belle. Ils sont grands. Elles sont contentes. So content with E and S, very important. Because we're talking about L, which is plural and feminine. Okay? You have to match the gender and the number with the noun. A lot of times, okay, how do we pronounce when I do followed by vowel? Finis. Okay. So if I have finis, it's il finis. So assume that NT is not there. Okay, so it's finis. Dormir is dorme. Forget the NT, pronounce dorme. Okay. What other verb if you want to give me anything? Parle. Assume the NT is not there, pronounce still E. So parle, dorme, finis. Okay, just pronounce it till there. With ANT and ENT, okay, the pronunciation with ANT is different because, for example, when you do Girondi, you would say the same thing as en parlant. Then the pronunciation is on, the nasal sound, parlant. En marchant, that is pronounced as en, the nasal sound. But that is different from ENT, as you can clearly see. Okay? So if I have marchand, this is marchand. I'm putting it on the chart for everyone so everyone can see. I hope there. But this is marche. Okay? Présent participe, which is ANT ending, will be O sound, the nasal sound, but ENT, assume NT is not there.
What if the case, like somebody mentioned the example, liaison we have to do, suppose the next word starts with vowel, then in that case, do we pronounce like finis on
No.
thiel? No. No.
We don't do it.
So how do we do that? Finis il?
So if it's finis, je finis, followed by whatever it is, that's subsequently separate. You don't connect it because you're not going to pronounce the ENT.
It's inversion. It's inversion. Finis thiel.
So we want to put that on the chat, so let's address it from there.
It's given, somebody has given that, but again, I will put that.
Okay, it's on the chat. I don't see it yet, but I'm happy to look at it.
Or for example, do they provide that provision like fournison thiel, suppose?
Yeah, so here in this case, what you're okay, you're talking about inversion, right? So in inversion, the the and the I will connect. Fini still, the sound will connect then because it is inversion. Okay, here you will connect the sound. If the endings are with ENT, are they always silent? Yeah, always. In your conjugations, they're always silent. Conjugations. Okay, why do I say that? Because you have ENT in adverbial ending also, right? Like absolument, telmo, bremo. There we say mo. That's ENT ending too. But I'm talking about the verb conjugation. In verb conjugation, when you have ENT in the end, then it's silent. Assume that the NT is not. Okay? Oh, go back to my screen. Okay. Voila. Now, how many of us we actually know what is the difference between bon and bien? If I want to say that this apple
Bien
is
is an adverb. Bien is adverb.
okay,
Bon
makes
is
sense.
adjective. Yeah.
Which is correct. So your adverb will be describing your verb. Okay, so if you're saying I sing well, you will be using bien. She cooks well. She talks well. That is bien. But the cake is good. The story is good. That is an adjective. So that is bon. So bon is used for things, whereas bien is used for your actions. Rightly said, bien will be used as an adverb to describe the actions, and bon will be used for things. Okay, like it's a good cake, le gâteau est bon. Okay, but she cooks well. Elle cuisine bien. Okay, which also brings me to a connecting point, which is where do you place adjectives? Can you ever say un homme français grand? We can't, right? The correct way to say that would be un grand homme français. Now, why are we putting grand as an adjective before and français as an adjective later? Why we've been told all adjectives come after, then why are we not doing that? Very simple. There's a Banks rule which talks about beauty, age, number, goodness, and size. Whenever you have these 5 adjectives, then they will come before your noun. For example, beau. Beau means handsome. This one talks about beauty, right? So this will come before my noun. Un beau garçon, une belle fille, une belle femme. Old is age, right? So it will come before. Une vieille maison. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again before. So trois bon amis. Talking about size. Big, small. Un grand chien. So understand that Banks rule which talks about beauty, age, number, goodness, size. If these are these 5 adjectives, then they will come before my noun. Rest all of them will come after. Okay. So if you see this example once again, un grand homme français, grand has come before homme because grand is denoting size. Français, on the other hand, does not fall into any of these 5 categories. It's a nationality. So it will come after. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up on the chat to know that it's fine till here? So we've done these rules. Beaucoup de, beaucoup de. We've talked about how ENTs do not have a sound. We've talked about how your adjective has to agree. That means add the E, add the S. Bon and bien different. And the Banks rule. Remember, beauty, age, number, goodness, and size. They will come before. Rest everything will come after. Colors also will come after. If you look at this, une petite maison blanche. Petite is coming before maison as an adjective. Why? Because it's size. Blanche is a color. It's not in the 5 rules. So it'll come later. Okay? Very simple. Now, I missed one. Okay. Now, using trop and très. 2 words. Trop means too much. Okay? And très means very. I cannot say ce film est trop bien. This film is too much good. Makes no sense. Ce film est très bien. This film is really good. It's very good. That makes sense. Il est très gentil. Le repas est très bon. So trop is something a little bit on the negative side and excessive. Très is emphasis to say very. Okay, if I say it's very noisy, it's too much noisy. That is, say, trop bruyant. Negative, excessive noise. Okay, trop bruyant. Okay, so all your little negatives. Excessive, that is too much. Okay. On the other hand, the usage of le with body part. I wash my hands. Technically, the translation should be je lave mes mains. I wash my hands. But the right way to say is je me lave les mains. Il se brosse les dents. Il se lave les cheveux. That means when you're using reflexive, then you will use definite articles for your body parts. Very simple rule right here. If you're using reflexive words, then you use a definite article for body parts. I brush my teeth. Je me brosse les dents, not mes dents. Because reflexive in itself is defining you're doing this action to yourself. So instead of mo, ma, me, ton, tat, you'll end up using articles, definite articles. And that's the rule. Reflexive verbs plus definite articles for body parts. Alright? Now, having said that, now it's a very small exercise that I want you guys to try out. There's a small passage in front of you. I want you guys to take a couple of minutes and just read this passage. Whatever errors you guys find in this, keep putting them on the chat. Let me see how many errors. Now, you guys are trainers, you guys are invigilators and examiners. How many errors can you find in this text? Whatever you find, put that on the chat and let's see if that's true. Everyone, let's do that. Okay, then says dernière. Okay. Whatever you do, put a hyphen next to it and just say that whatever your reason is. Okay. Giving you guys 2 minutes. Go through it. Let's figure it out. Sure. I should be pendant my weekend. Okay. Let's see how many we have. Le weekend. Okay. Réaliser should be rendu compte. Okay. Je suis allé should be with E. Okay. Des pommes. Okay. Because pomme is pluriel. Okay. Réaliser should be rendu compte. Okay. Raconter. Okay. We're collecting the entire list. We'll see what was correct and what was not correct. Okay. Achete, achete. Okay, that's incorrect. Okay. Okay. Please don't say that. Okay. I believe everyone has gone through this more or less. Bonjour, je m'appelle Clara et je veux réaliser une petite histoire sur mon week-end dernier. Okay, so we're talking about her last weekend, what she did. She bought apples, she wrote chocolate. Everybody's read it and everybody spotted at least a few errors in this. This is not error-free, right? Let's see what all errors did we find and if you also found the same. For those who found réaliser, absolutely correct. Réaliser was an issue because you realize something. No, you want to describe a story. That means you have to raconter une histoire. You want to tell a story, but it should not be réaliser. Des pommes is incorrect because pomme it has to be with an S. So that was one. So plural of the noun agreement has to be there. Attendu au parc. No. Aller au parc. Attendre is to wait. Aller is to go. So you'll use aller here for meaning that you went to the park. Le soleil brillait. No. The sun was shining. That is imparfait. So the tense usage of briller should be in the form of imparfait briller. Description. Beaucoup de nos projets. Beaucoup de projets. Avoid beaucoup de, of course, because when you're referring to a general quantity. Je suis rentré. Since Clara is the one speaking, I'll have to accord. There has to be another E in the end. Past participle in case of être has to be accord. Nous avons monté la colline. Nous sommes montés. Dr. Mrs. Van der Tram has to agree. Now there are these are all the errors. Of course, ale should also be with an extra E, which is very rightly pointed out. We already pointed out form should be an issue. It's obviously an issue. Nous avons attendu anyway is an issue. A lot of things here that still need workaround, but those were very few that were right in the face. Okay. Of course, a lot of pointers that you guys pointed out are also errors in the text. So as examiner, so imagine this was the text that you wrote you would still want to come back to it and read and try to find the errors that you saw today in your existing test. Yun journée, correct. Ri beaucoup, correct. Whatever errors you guys are finding out are excellent errors. So the way that you're finding out errors for this is the same way you will find out errors for yourself after you're done with your writings. Make sure you see if you put correct punctuations, correct accents, correct spelling. Make sure you've checked if you've agreed a verb subject agreement if you've done or not. See if you put the adjectives in the correct place and position or not. See if you use the correct tenses or not. See if you've done the correct paragraph spacings or not. See if anywhere you've used the incorrect être or avoir by any chance.